So this is kind of a rant. I watched the Trolls movies out of order, went into it completely blind, just kind of threw it on the TV, wasn't really expecting anything of it. I watched the third one, Band Together. The only thing that I had really heard about these movies was that they were musicals. I watched a lot of cartoons. You know, the first animated movies were animated Broadway musicals, so I was like, musical's not a problem, but they weren't original. They were not original songs. I was kind of expecting something kind of corporate cash grabby, emoji movie, that sort of thing. Just something to kind of be flashy and entertain kids. We know how easy it is to entertain kids. You don't usually have to try very hard. So that was my original first impression. I threw it on the TV. I was like, you know, whatever, I'll just put it on. I never want to watch anything good. To my surprise, I liked it. I'm just yelling about the Trolls movies. I'm like an animation purist. I love 2D animation. All of the Disney classics, I prefer 2D art for art and animation over 3D art. But everything animated these days is 3D. And in my opinion, it almost never looks good. Like, it's really hard to look good with 3D animation. And there was this one scene in Trolls Band Together that I was like, wow, this world is really fun and colorful. You know, the scenes are really dynamic. They're always changing it up, throwing colors, splashes. The character design is fun. Sometimes they switch and they change like styles, and it's very visually interesting. It was the third one. I didn't know the characters. I didn't know the world. The opening didn't exactly impress me. I kind of was spacing off, I'll admit, the first moment. But there was one scene that I thought looked so good when they're in this like pool noodle world. It just looks really creative and unique. I'm looking at it and I'm saying I've never seen anything like this before. That's impressive to me. And from here on out, I was more positive, or I was thinking more positively as I was watching the movie the rest of the way. I really liked the main characters. The main characters carried it through for me. What's not to love about the black cat and the golden retriever dynamic? It's cute, okay? I like it. It's cute. So I'm watching Trolls Band Together, and you know, I'm past the opening. I'm getting into the plot. I'm at the point where I'm like, wow, this is, you know, pretty to look at. I'm not minding the songs too much. Something I was really expecting was just like full musical sequences, you know, where the plot halts and we have to sing a song about something for 2 minutes, like Disney does. I was really surprised that it actually didn't overstay its welcome too long. Most of the songs were like mashups and throwbacks. These music segments aren't really lasting more than like 30 seconds. Like maybe a couple of them went a little bit longer, but anytime they wanted to just kind of throw a jingle at you, something you would recognize really quick, it would just blend into the next song and it would just keep going like that. And I didn't think it was anything super annoying. Not that there weren't annoying parts in it, but I think it could have been real annoying.
And maybe the reason I don't mind the mashup music so much and the like quick pacing of all like the music segments is probably just because every 30 seconds I have like a new song in my head and then it flips to something completely random. I don't even like those songs that much, but it'll like pop into my head. It's just like hook after hook after hook.
Don't really care for the plot. Just trying to make sense of this world, because like, okay, we have these little troll guys and they don't look anything like the original Troll brand. I thought they were going to mention that somehow. That's not mentioned in this movie. You're just supposed to know at this point, and I'm sitting here trying to make sense of it. These colorful troll guys, they sing and dance real well. Why? They have talent. People are after their talent. They catch the trolls into these little plastic, like diamond-looking things. These environments that they're in where like things are made out of other things, like the pool noodle world. Are these guys just like animated toys? Are we in like toy world? There's a scene where they're at the beach and the water is Orbeez, or like those like plastic little like 90s toys, like, what are they called? Orbeez? Non-toxic water gel capsules. There's this scene where they're at the beach, they're at Beach World, and the water is all Orbeez. There's a scene where Poppy is holding a little martini glass and there's like Orbeez in it. These are all like toys. So maybe the trolls are like animated toys and we're going by like Toy Story rules. And then I saw the villains, the like two twins, and they're like, those are 90s toys. They are very clearly inspired by those the Bendy. I used to have one. What are they called? Bendy Wendy or something? It's called Betty Spaghetti. Betty Spaghetti Fashion Doll. The main antagonist for Trolls World Tour is so clearly inspired by the Betty Spaghetti Fashion Doll. And I loved it. And I was like, you know what? Those villains were really fun to watch move around. It totally reminded me of Toy Story, where they took every toy character and they animated them in a different way. So, you know, Woody would ragdoll around while he's running, or Buzz would have more stiff because he's like an action figure, right? And these guys, they were like bending around, really fit their plasticky look, because in 3D, everything's gonna look kind of plasticky. I don't love it, but it looks so good on them. I want to go over a little bit more about how Velvet and Veneer, the antagonists, were introduced. We get this montage about these celebrities, these pop stars. Just think that this montage is like a really good example of how they do a style change and they keep it really interesting. Throwaway montage sequence where you show rising stardom. We've seen that before. But first thing we do is we kind of zoom in the screen. We go into kind of a retro TV kind of look, and retro is kind of like the main theme here. Like, this is a recurring visual style that we're gonna see through it. This is like the whole thing, the whole movie. Collapse the screen a little bit so that it's a retro TV screen. It's got like the VHS fuzziness to it. Kind of a fun texture thing. We get some examples of how these characters move, and they're very like rubber hose kind of animation. Looks really good. My favorite example of how they're constantly keeping things interesting is when they show the top Billboard chart. Velvet and Veneer's song was the top 10, and we see it show up on the line, but it's not just like a top 10 Billboard shot. Velvet and Veneer are swinging on they're like breaking the fourth wall. It shows off their character, shows off their personality. They're kind of snarky, they're kind of full of themselves. You get all of that really quickly. Perfect. Honestly, I have seen so many bad montages, but when I see a good one, I always feel like I need to shout it out. Such a good addition, well executed. I like this one because I absolutely think that they were the best part of Trolls Band Together. My Toy Story theory started to fall apart. The blue troll, Branch, he says something about how his grandma got eaten. That doesn't really make sense if we're like doing Toy Story rules, right? Why are we eating? Surely if I keep going and watch the rest of them, I'll get some answers. The third movie is nothing really like the other ones. I kind of liked the third one maybe the best. I think if I had to pick, I think the second one has the best plot, or like the main theme of like they're singing, dancing little guys. The other ones, it's just, you just have to accept that they're singing and dancing. That's just the world you're in, and you're gonna watch it for an hour and a half. I didn't care about stupid long lost brothers. I guess I didn't really care about Poppy's B story either here, where she also finds her long lost sister. I will say her sister's character design is very cute. I did laugh at the line where they like braid each other's hair. It was cute. Really love, and they go for a art style change. There's a scene in this one, they have to hustle. And so the glittery guy jumps on the hustle button. So we get this little montage to the hustle, another throwback song. They randomly throw in the Every Day I'm Hustling, the party rock anthem. They only do it once. Like, I totally thought they were gonna abuse that because I was like, oh. But they throw it in once, they keep the hustle, and they show this really cool 2D animated, which I was like, yes, love to see it. 2D animated psychedelic sequence, and I was like, this is awesome. Love it 100%. They do this several times within the movie. That was something that just totally, I was really surprised by. They several times, they want to shake it up. They want to change the visual style. They want to go for something different, and they just totally went for it, and it always looked really good. You can tell that the people who are making this are really great animators. I know it's made for kids. I say this all the time. Media that's meant for kids doesn't mean that there isn't talented artists that are working on it. There's scholars in the art field. They're making good art. I was impressed. At the very end, Velvet and Veneer, they're putting on a concert. They decide they can't go in the concert venue, we're taking it on the road, and there's this crazy sequence of this like toy world. Again, I'm like, why isn't this Toy Story rules where we're like in someone's imagination, this isn't really happening, or it's Andy's room and he's playing or something like that. I was like, surely that's what it is. No. They take the concert to the road, and they've got like, it's like Mario Rainbow Road rules. We've got roads upside down. The road is just like, it's in the space void realm. Looks so crazy, and the composition is so good, and it's fun, very dynamic. We've got so much stuff going on. We're in this concert, we're listening to a mashup of Sweet Dreams and Fame, and it's got this really solid beat throughout it, and it was, everything synced up to the beat. It feels good and it looks good, and it all came together, and at this point I'm just like, yeah! It reminded me of the new Puss in Boots movie at the end. I was like, this is spectacular, this looks good. I liked it. I'm gonna watch it. Used to have rooms full of computers to render this whole thing out. Again, I'm looking at this and I'm saying I've never seen anything like this before. It's creative, it's new, it's original. You take Rainbow Road, you mash it up with Betty Spaghetti, you throw the trolls in there for some reason. It looks great. It's great. It was awesome. I don't feel this strongly about the other ones. I've seen it like 3 times now. Why does he look like that? Alright, then I watched Trolls World Tour. I had picked up, these trolls like pop music. Okay, so there's other types of musical trolls. It's never stated why these silly creatures all love to sing and dance.
And all know NSYNC by heart.
Trolls, which have, context from fairy tales and things like that, as like baby snatchers. They're really good at dancing. Seen this, heard about this. Trolls love pop music. In this movie, we meet like heavy metal trolls, mermaid techno trolls. I've said it before, we've got good character design. I don't know about the giraffe trolls. Is he a troll too? And it was kind of just a question that's answered here. Yes. Funk trolls, which did not seem that different from pop trolls, but that's okay. I really liked seeing the heavy metal trolls. I thought they were really cute. The character design in like all of these movies, I really like it. It's simple. It communicates what you need to communicate well. It's got good silhouetting, good, like I know what I'm seeing when I look at it. I'm like, that's a heavy metal troll, yeah. And again, animation looks good, super fun environments. Really liked seeing the character design changes at the end where we saw heavy metal Poppy, heavy metal Branch, and I've seen the fan art. I've seen it. I can't say anything because I've also made fan art. Something I noticed about Trolls World Tour, no Bergens. There was nobody getting eaten. There was no mention of we're gonna get eaten, we have to worry about that. We're silly little troll guys. It was just a lore drop, really, for why these trolls are musical imps. It was so obscure, but I thought it looked so good. There was a scene where the funk trolls come down in their spaceship. What am I saying? These funk trolls come down in their spaceship and they abduct our titular characters with this this bubble thing comes down from their ship. Loved looking at it. It was one of those things where I was just wondering how they did it technically. Not as spectacular as some of the things I remember from Band Together, but I really liked that part. Trolls 2016, the original, the first one, Trolls. I was really surprised after watching the other two how dark and grimy and like colorless this movie starts out throughout the movie way less bright and cheery and colorful than the others. It seems like they weren't really sure how much they could kind of break out of the original brand that they started with, which they show it just in like the opening sequence. The original troll design, it's so fast, it's throwaway, they never talk about it. Just a little mask, the dummy for Poppy. The first movie, it's ugly. It's not immediately like gripped by like the whimsical nature of all of the scenery and the characters as I was in the third one. Did kind of a fairy tale thing almost. And there's this notion of getting eaten by a more stereotypical troll, which they rename to be Bergens, because, you know, trolls are the cute little guys. The trolls aren't what lives under the bridge. No. The trolls sing pop music and they're really good at dancing. So we got these Bergens, they eat cute little trolls. That's pretty much the main conflict of the entire movie. I didn't really like seeing the Bergens as kind of like the main central plot. When I knew from watching the other movies that we could be in a lot more fun looking environments. If we went with the Toy Story rules that I had outlined in my head, I think it would have been great. Scratch all this Bergen stuff. He ate your grandma, who cares? We start off and we have to kind of immediately characterize these silly guys as like overly cheery. Poppy is like overly cheery, she's overly optimistic, that's like her main character. And then you meet Branch, who's very negative, grumpy. You've seen it before, you've seen it 1,000 times. Is kind of cute here. I actually really liked the sequence at the very end. It was this contrived plot detail that I thought was so weird, because I didn't remember it in any of the other movies, where like every 30 minutes their flowers go off and they have to have a hug. It's hug time. And I realized later it's a hug bracelet, because as I was watching it, I was like, every 30 minutes they have to have a hug. Like, did that carry on into the other movies? Like, I super don't remember that. It was there, but I just didn't pick up on it. At the very end of the darkest hour, we're at the lowest point in the plot. Everybody's really sad. Just a little hug bracelet. Chimes. And the Branch goes to give her a little hug and she doesn't accept it. And you're just kind of like, oh, because every other time those stupid little bracelets go off, everybody's so excited for a hug. Weirdly excited. But I thought that was a sweet moment. You know, it made sense once it got to that scene, because like every time we stopped the plot to have like a Teletubby level of having a hug and it's really awkward and weird, I was like, why are we spending so much time? Move it along. I was like, okay, so that's like their defining moment from their silly little relationship. And then they start singing. It was cute thematically how Branch starts out as kind of a muted blue-gray is his like main color palette. I swear they don't keep it. They are not consistent with his color palette. I was noticing this as I was watching. I was like, Branch's colors are all over the dang place. The song True Colors plays, brightens up because of Poppy, his one true love. I didn't really care for the Trolls. I didn't really care for the first Trolls movie. Just because I just didn't think it was as fun as the other ones. The other ones are just way more like enjoyable, like from an artistic level. This one, there was a couple of scenes that reminded me of the horror game Little Nightmares. The main Bergen totally reminded me of the chefs from the Little Nightmares, because she's like got this knife and she's in a kitchen and she's always trying to grab the little trolls and just cook them up. And I'm like, I thought we were all toys here. You could get a real sense of the artistic direction in these movies. Something I really liked was that they added textures to like pretty much everything in the whole movie. It's consistent throughout, but like the skin of the trolls and even the Bergens have like specifically like a felt texture to it. I really, really loved the scrapbooking scenes every time they used that as some kind of narrative transition, a way to tell their backstory. The scrapbooking cutouts, it looked fantastic, a really fun way to do 2D in 3D. I liked that they saw that they could add more texture to the scene, and like pretty much every single shot has a unique texture to it. Closing thoughts? Good, bad, in between somewhere, probably. My order would be Trolls Band Together, the original, and then World Tour on the bottom. World Tour, I think, could get omitted from this list entirely and still make sense narratively. Like, you could probably just skip that one because the second one doesn't have the Bergens or any of that plot, and so you could pretty much just eliminate it. Not my favorite, but it does have some fun parts to it. They all have fun parts to it. I looked them up on Rotten Tomatoes. Trolls Band Together has a 63% from the critics and a 92% audience score on the same page. It's pretty clear that the fan favorite seems to be Band Together, which I 100% agree with. Data's on my side. I said it earlier in the video, but usually I prefer the 2D animation style to CGI 3D animated. Since, you know, things start in 2D, we always draw characters on a sketch and we silhouette things that way, and then it gets translated to a 3D model, and almost always the 2D sketch is more personable or more expressive than the 3D models and things like that. Netflix actually put out a 2D animated spin-off cartoon series with the Trolls brand. We watched a little bit of it. They changed the character models of, specifically Poppy and Branch look a little bit different in 2D, and this is probably one of the only times I will ever say this, but I think the 3D looks better. It's more expressive and vibrant. The 2D does still look good. I didn't really talk about the humor or the dialogue or the writing. I say it's okay. A little bit of millennial humor mixed with the new generation humor. They say things like drip, say things like looking like a snack, stuff that I think kind of ages these movies. Got some laughs out of me, I'll admit it. Comes to the surprise of no one that DreamWorks is putting out some pretty good stuff. Just released Puss in Boots Last Wish, which was pretty much a smash hit. People really received that one really well. They're a good studio, they know how to animate, they aren't afraid to try something new, and I really appreciate that, but it's certainly not revolutionizing the animation genre or anything like that. It's no Into the Spider-Verse, but I do think that the CGI animation here looks really good. I don't know if these movies will stand the test of time, but definitely better than I expected, and I'd probably throw it on the TV again just to have a good time.